Welcome to another episode of Pursuing Wisdom. My name is Robert Davis, and today we're going to look at, are the Passover and the Last Supper the same thing? Jesus and his disciples ate the Last Supper the night before his crucifixion. So the question becomes, is the Last Supper of Jesus and his disciples the same as the Passover? There's no real consensus on this topic. The Synoptic Gospels describe the Last Supper as taking place on the first day of unleavened bread, which is the beginning of Passover. They also mention the preparation of a Passover meal in the presence of a lamb. However, John's account places the Last Supper on the day before the Passover, before the official Passover meal is eaten. It also mentions that Jesus was crucified on the day of preparation for Passover. This suggests that the Last Supper was a separate event, not part of the Passover meal. Some suggest that the disagreement might be due to differing calendar systems used by Jesus and the temple authorities, or that Jesus may have celebrated Passover a day early. Others interpret the Last Supper as a new Passover, where Jesus is the sacrificial lamb and the meal is a symbolic foreshadowing of his sacrifice. Let's see if we can discover the truth of the matter. First, let's get our terms straight. Passover is not a whole day event. Rather, it is a meal celebrated on the 14th of the Hebrew month called Nisan. The next day starts the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is on the 15th of Nisan. This feast lasts for 7 days. The first day and the last day are considered a holy convocation or a high day, which are treated and called Sabbaths. The day of preparation is the last part of the 14th of Nisan, which is technically still the Passover day. In Judaism, Passover has been combined with the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and today is considered an 8-day holiday, simply called Passover. Now that we have our terms straight, let's look at how a day is composed. In Judaism, a day starts approximately at sunset and ends the next day at the same time. Therefore, for 6 hours every evening from 6 p.m. to midnight, we are a day behind, which can be a little confusing when tracking things. Passover is to be observed on the 14th day of the first month at twilight. This marked the time of the original Passover, when the Israelites applied the blood of the sacrificial lamb to their doorposts, and the Lord passed over their homes during the final plague on Egypt. Jesus ate the Passover meal with his disciples in accordance with the Old Testament scriptures on the evening of the 14th of the month. Remember, this is the beginning of the Jewish day. The Passover lambs were slaughtered at the temple in Jerusalem in the afternoon of the 14th, in accordance with the daily sacrifice, usually around 3 o'clock. This, in fact, is the next day to us. Why did Judaism change the time the Passover lambs were supposed to be slaughtered? The instructions for the first Passover in Egypt were for families to kill a lamb at home on the 14th of the month at twilight and to put its blood on their doorposts. After leaving Egypt, this home-based observance changed to a centralized temple sacrifice. This centralization presented a logistical challenge. It was impossible for the priests and the Levites to kill the thousands of lambs needed for Passover between sunset and dark at the beginning of the 14th. So to accommodate the large number of sacrifices, the time for slaughtering was moved to the afternoon of the 14th, which, as I said, is the next day to us. Jesus ate the Passover meal in accordance with the law. He was crucified the morning of the 14th, approximately 9 a.m. Jesus died on the 14th around 3 p.m. or the 9th hour. This was the same time the priest slaughtered the lambs at the temple. The timeline confirms Jesus was offered as our Passover lamb. In addition, it proves the Last Supper was indeed a Passover meal, which Jesus shared with his disciples. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, be blessed.